past, we've discussed bad smut books at length, such as Get in My Swamp, Stay in My Swamp, and Bad Behavior. These are literally some of the most popular videos on my channel. Likely because when you hear about a book where Shrek's huge is out, you're naturally morbidly curious about that. Or a book like Bad Behavior that goes into grave detail about Barry B. Benson's sex life with a human. When you see that, you click, and you know what? I would too. A lot of us are curious, but the culprit behind all these books is a mysterious author that goes by the name G.M. Ferry, who has recently published a new book elegantly titled Pounded by Produce. Now, when I heard about this, I immediately hopped on TikTok and checked her page. I said to myself, what IP could she possibly be going after this time? And the answer, tragically, is VeggieTales. And I knew this book would be as unpleasant to read as those aforementioned three, but I was ready to continue me and GM Ferry's symbiotic situationship. She writes a book, I make fun of the book. She writes another book, I make fun of the book. GM Ferry is just happy that anyone is talking about her books, whether they like them or not. And I know this to be true because she told me herself. She saw my Bad Behavior book review and posted it on her story. And she even followed me, making us some of the most unlikely moots that Instagram has ever seen. You know, making us enemies to lovers. Get to work right now, AOA3 users. But I assure you this moot situation will not be affecting my judgment. I'm actually about to commit moot on moot crime. So let's discuss. Now, VeggieTales was so foreign to me before making this video. It was just as mysterious as, is it Yanni or is it Laurel? We're still asking that.
Laurel.
I had only watched VeggieTales like a handful of times as a child, and my only memory of it was this one song about Kung Pao chicken that was the absolute banger. In fact, apparently, this show has a lot of good music. Two of its more famous songs are named Belly Button and His Cheeseburger. Songs that I cannot play for you lest this video be appealed. So you'll have to take my word for it or look those songs up on your own time. They are seriously good. That being said, I heard that this show is beloved to pretty much everybody that has watched it. And in order for me to understand why people love it so much and who the hell these characters even are in Pounded by Produce, I watched mass quantities of VeggieTales, and I came to the conclusion that this show is delightful. It centers around Larry the Cucumber and Bob the Tomato, two best friends who live in a chaotic world with other fruits and vegetables. And in each episode, they solve a problem by being kind to others or simply working together. And the show is actually incredibly base. Like, if this show aired today, conservatives would say that they're trying to poison our children with the woke mind virus. They even quite literally have an episode all about workers' rights, as told by Larry and Bob being exploited by their employer, Mr. Nezer, who, might I add, is very reminiscent of a certain bald billionaire CEO. So, admittedly, it shocked me to my core when at the end of this episode I was watching, Bob the Tomato opened up his mouth and started talking about Jesus. I literally was flummoxed. I said out loud, why is he talking about God? How did I not know that this was a Christian show? Oh yes, if you're like me and have been naive your whole life, leave it. This show is godly. But in hindsight, if I'm really breaking it down and analyzing it, I think the reason it was so hard for me to believe and accept is because I'm used to seeing Christian content that is with peace and love, specifically by conservative Christians who often spread some harmful ideas. Or, and some people, not me, but some people might find this even worse, sometimes they're just guilty of cringe. But anyways, now that I was a VT fan, that's right, I'm not a casual fan anymore. The real VeggieTale heads will call it VT. I knew GM Fairies Pounded by Produce had to meet a certain criteria for me to be even a little bit satisfied with it. So, did it disappoint? And did it disturb? A little bit. Let's get into it. There are 3 main characters in this book. Larry the Cucumber, who has been renamed Laurent for copyright purposes, Bob the Tomato, renamed Robert, and Emily, who is a original character and not based off of anyone. But for the sake of all of our sanity, I'll be calling Laurent and Robert by their biblically accurate names, Larry and Bob. Now, in this book, they are both priests at a Catholic church, and they're both human. Well, at least they are for a little while. Larry is described as being tall with green eyes and shaggy, dirty blonde hair tucked behind his ears. Now, personally, in my head, I envision him to look like Andrew Van Wijngaarden from MGMT, but that's just me, like, ugh. What a beautiful man. Meanwhile, Bob is described as being shorter and stockier, with golden hazel eyes and curly brown hair. Basically, these two are physical polar opposites, which, if you look at them, yeah, kind of makes sense. But one thing that they do have in common is muscles and big old veins. Oh yeah, and being gay. Be who you are.
My name is JWK.
Hey, be who you are.
That's right, folks. We have been blessed by queer vegetable representation. But before we get into that, let's take a break and talk about NOCD, a company that means a lot to me. OCD isn't just about being organized or being a neat freak. Girl, I wish it was that simple. I've been struggling with OCD ever since I was a kid, and I would have these non-stop racing thoughts coupled with overwhelming anxiety. And that led me to think that I had to do certain compulsions to prevent something bad from happening. For example, when I was in 7th grade, I had OCD about the world ending due to the freaking Mayan calendar and this freaking movie called 2012. I would open and close doors 3 times, like every 30 minutes, as part of my ritual to prevent a huge tsunami from wiping out Knott's Berry Farm and all of Buonaparte. Thank you, Roland Emmerich. But as I got older, my OCD shifted and became even sneakier, going after the things I care about most. I mean, OCD is terrible. It can make you doubt yourself, your relationships, even your entire identity. And for years, I went through therapist after therapist after therapist, and like none of them understood me. Some would even make my OCD worse by indulging in my delusions. But then, luckily, I found NOCD. NOCD is the world's leading provider of specialized OCD treatment. Their therapists actually understand how OCD shows up, and they use proven, effective methods to treat it. With NOCD, for the first time, I truly felt understood and like I had real tools to fight back. You know, no more tsunamis. And it's super convenient. Therapy is 100% virtual and covered by insurance for over 155 Americans. Plus, they offer support between sessions so that you never feel alone. And you know, OCD isn't something that is going to magically go away, but you can get better at managing your symptoms. And this therapy has certainly helped me with that. So if you think you might be struggling with OCD, visit NOCD.com to book a free 15-minute call and learn how they can help. That's NOCD.com. Thank you so much for sponsoring me, NOCD, again. And now back to the video. But moving on, there's Emily, and she is technically the main character in the story. It starts with her, and we're also given the most information on her home life, which is really not saying much. You cannot hold your breath for very much detail in this book, and either way, she is definitely the most useless character here. And worst of all, the most boring. Mostly because the tiniest ounce of interesting romance that there is in this book comes from Larry and Bob's relationship, which, as you'll see, is 100 times more interesting. But I digress. Emily is described as a beautiful brunette with doe eyes, plump lips, and freckles on her nose. And the book begins with her letting us know that she just got out of an abusive relationship with her now ex-boyfriend, Daryl. Quote, "We start the story here where I am right now, done with the bullshit and finally ready to start over and make a better life for myself. I have to say, I am grateful that she let me know the story had started because I was starting to worry that it wouldn't." So Emily is presently living in her Uncle Gary's old trailer while she sorts her life out. She describes it as a shitty mobile home. And quick side note, I'm pretty sure her Uncle Gary is based off of Jerry Gord from VeggieTales. I don't know. I don't have any proof of this. He just has Uncle Gary vibes. Now, that being said, all of this might make it sound like it could make her an interesting character because there certainly is a lot to explore there and a lot to unpack, but this truly only comes up like 1 or 2 times more in the entire book. Regardless though, Emily virtually has nothing. No job, no internet, nada. And she feels like her future is pretty grim because she doesn't really have any skills that could get her a job that would pay her well. And since she has no internet, she has to job search the Amish way by reading newspapers. And one day, she comes across an ad that says, "Help wanted, live in parish cook, remote rural location." Now, if you don't know what a parish is, I know I didn't. It's basically a Catholic or Christian mini Lego town that has a church and priests as well as other church personnel sometimes live there. So, just to relay that information because it was confusing to me, the job is for her to be a cook on this church land. And since it's in the middle of nowhere, that's a pretty huge red flag. A flag which she ignores because she has no other options. So she calls and she gets the job despite having 0 culinary experience. So she packs her bags and heads for the parish. And when she arrives, she meets the administrator named Gail, who tells her that the previous cook left unexpectedly, which led the priests themselves to take over that cook position. Hence, the need to employ somebody, whether they had experience or not, right away. The priests, aka Bob and Larry, have other things to attend to. Now, Gail is described as wearing a long green skirt that goes all the way down to her ankles, with white hair tied behind her head and a wide, friendly grin across her wrinkle-strewn face. Now, if you look up Gail from VeggieTales, there was only one mysterious woman with that name, named Gail Freeman Bach, and she actually narrated and voiced many of the original VeggieTale characters. Yet there is very little known about her because I simply can't find any pictures of her. But my guess is that this lady Gail is based off of either her character The Rumor Weed or Lisa Asparagus based off of that description. Anyways, Gail is kind to her despite her not being a Catholic, and she shows her around the church, the kitchen where she'll be working, and her bedroom. They even have a garden where they grow their own vegetables. And since this location is so remote, Gail says they grow their own vegetables in the garden, like tomatoes and cucumbers. After this, we are finally introduced to Priest Bob, who is actually out in this garden picking vegetables. And just as Bob is picking up a ripe and juicy tomato, giving it a little tender squeeze, he's interrupted by Priest Larry, who is running across the field singing, "Oh, where is my hairbrush?" Which, if you didn't know, is a reference to a VeggieTales segment called Silly Songs with Larry, specifically a silly song called the hairbrush song. But Bob laughs about him being all silly and dramatic, and then we learn some tea about their relationship. For example, how they've been friends for 15 years and how much he loves Larry's singing. Quote, "You'd think after all these years we've known each other, his over-the-top performances due to minor inconveniences would get under my skin. But alas, Larry never bores me. His constant humor spills from his pores and has a way of melting into the cracks of my hard exterior. Robert, oh Robert!" He falls against me, out of breath and gripping my shoulder. "Look at me, I'm a mess." He throws the back of his hands over his eyes. "What will the patrons think when they see my incurable bedhead?" I push him off of me and he sputters into a laugh. "I doubt anyone will notice once they hear my sermon." "Oh, come on, you are a beautiful speaker." He swings his arm over me, kissing the top of my brown curly head. After reading that, I was like, oh, this is getting a little bit homoerotic. But then I read the next fucking page and it says this: "In seminary school, we found ourselves in precarious situations more than once. We'd never talked about it out loud, but now, laying in the grass and letting my mind drift to wherever it chooses to land, I couldn't help but think about one of those nights when it was dark and quiet, but the air was thick with something you can't name. My mind raced with images of mouths on skin, the sound of thrusting in and out of dark and delicious places. My hand found its way on my throbbing cock, trying my best to be as quiet as I rubbed myself desperately." Larry was always a light sleeper, and when I heard rustling coming from his bed only a few feet away from mine, I couldn't help but divert my gaze to him, staring back at me, eyes dark and intent, as his hands hid under his blankets, moving up and down. His lips parted and soft moans escaped him. I should have stopped him, apologized, confessed my sins to my priest, and requested to separate as roommates. But I didn't. I didn't stop. I kept my eyes locked with his, jerked myself off until we both finished and closed our eyes around the euphoria, never opening them until the next morning. Holy shit. Locking eyes? Okay, challengers coded. This is obviously some gay or bi activities. But it's really important to know that in this story, Bob is closeted and he's very strict about his priest duties, such as cough cough, celibacy. And that is both a problem for Bob and a turn on for Larry, because Larry is fully in love with Bob, head over heels, obsessed. Like, he is constantly flirting with him straight to his face. In fact, his friendship and his love for Bob is the entire reason why he joined seminary school to become a priest in the first place. He loves him that much. Larry quote, "Bob's the real deal. unlike me, who's faking it most of the time. He's always been that way. In seminary school, I was in awe of him, even more so than I am now. He didn't have questions, only answers. It felt like God spoke to him like his closest confidant. I was jealous at first. Why him and not me? But I quickly learned that jealousy wasn't that at all. I didn't want to be him. I just wanted him. All of him. I came to seminary school to find my purpose. I thought I'd fuck around at seminary school and find out if the Catholic Church had all the answers they proclaimed to have. I'd had my fair share of pussy in my early years, and it always disappointed me. It was so meaningless, so fast, missing something entirely. Those few nights with Robert, with just my hand, his labored breaths, and my mind, did more for me than any of my previous sexual experiences. Of course, something was missing. Something was always missing. If I'm being honest, Larry is my boy. He is the saving grace of this book. Not only do I find him funny a lot of the time, I find him to be the most three-dimensional. Everybody else in this book, man, I could give two shits. They're kind of lifeless. So if you walk away with anything from this video, stan Larry. Larry also delivers almost all of the lines that are actually relevant to VeggieTales. Maybe if we pray hard enough, God will make our produce come to life and cook itself. He smiles. That would creep me the fuck out. Instead, let's pray that this new cook coming tomorrow is decent. Decent? Larry sits up. I'm praying for more than that. Ye of little faith. My God is bigger than the boogeyman, which that is a reference to a song sung by Junior, Larry, and Bob. So he's pretty much the deliverer of lines like this. Okay, and real quick before I forget to mention this, the book is written from all three of these main characters' perspectives. So when I read lines from them, I will definitely specify whose inner monologue this is. Anyways though, Emily meets Bob and Larry very briefly, and she immediately notices that they're hot. And this leads her to have an insane erotic dream about both of them later that night. And in this dream, she is sitting in the pews of the church. The two priests come up behind her. Bob and Larry both put their hands on her shoulder and then whip out their dicks. But here's where the VeggieTalesification begins to enter the chat, because Larry's dick is specifically described as a cucumber. Quote, he's so smooth, almost like a cucumber? And when she wakes up from this dream, she's still fantasizing about Larry's cucumber. Quote, the feeling of Larry's cucumber cock in my hand still warms my skin. Why did I imagine his cock as a cucumber? Fuck if I know. Maybe it's my brain's weird way of letting me know I need some refreshments. This causes her to wander off into the parish's kitchen in the middle of the night, and as she makes her way over to the pantry, she realizes that Larry is sitting in the middle of the room in the dark eating cereal, which scares the shit out of her, understandably. Cereal is most definitely something you do not eat in the dark, okay? Foods you can eat in the dark. Let's go. Popcorn, Cane's chicken, red vines. Notice how none of these are cereal. But although Larry doesn't mind her being in here at all, and he in fact is apologizing for scaring her, she feels super embarrassed and caught off guard because she was literally just fantasizing about his cucumber. But something really weird that has been visually burnt into my mind is that GM Fairy is constantly writing about sweat or milk or juice running down the side of somebody's mouth or lips. Like when she describes Larry eating her cereal, she writes this: boo. He whispers with a smile, milk dripping down the corner of his lips. And you might be thinking, Nikki, what's the big deal? Well, to me, the big deal is that this is definitely supposed to be sexy. Because here's another example. He brings another spoonful of cereal to his mouth, keeping his eyes on mine as a drop of milk falls from the corner of his mouth, and he quickly cleans it with his knuckle. I advert my gaze back to the bowl in front of me, twirling around the brown balls and darkening milk. I don't feel hungry anymore. But anyways, Emily ends up sitting down with him and they share a bowl of cereal. And they proceed to have a little bit of a meet cute. I haven't had Reese's Puffs since I was a kid. Well, that's just sad, said Larry. It's odd. He doesn't talk like I'd expect a priest to sound. He's young, but he's a man of God. I figured he'd sound as formal as a grandpa. I walk over to the other side of the counter, taking the seat next to him. Never thought to buy it at the store. That's the point of being an adult. You get to buy all the junk food your parents limited you whenever you want. I take a big bite, feeling the tingles of nostalgia and the peanut butter taste. Except when you're an adult, you can't just use your parents' wallet to buy things, and now you have to worry about shit like your health. It takes a second for me to realize I just cursed. Shit! I clamp my hand over my mouth. What is happening right now? Father Larry says, as he leans closer, studying my face with his spoon pointed at me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Say what? Maybe he hadn't heard it. The bad word. Don't worry, it won't happen again. He laughs, taking another spoonful of cereal. You don't need to worry about that here. I'd watch it a little bit more when you're in front of the patrons, but you don't need to pretend you're something that you're not in front of us. Now, from both Larry and Bob's perspectives, they are attracted to Emily. Larry is just much more confident about it and will actually pull her aside for a chat like you just saw right now. You know, Emily, can I pull you aside for a chat? Although, in my opinion, Larry is still way more into Bob. On the flip side of this, Bob's inner monologue is like, oh my god, this isn't godly. Is this a test? Is Emily being here a test from God? Quote, any man would take notice of Emily, except I'm not any man. I'm a man of God. Plenty of beautiful women have been in my presence without heightening my blood pressure to a single degree, but there's something different about her, something I can't name. And then there's the way that Larry responds to her. He's a devilish flirt with the older woman in the congregation, but it always seemed like part of a bit. The way he acts with her, well, it reminds me of how he behaves with me. Cheeky, smiley, his eyes examining one piece of her at a time. I'm not sure if it's jealousy or my mind playing tricks on me. But moving on, the next day, Bob and Larry do their church service. Hallelujah. And afterwards, when they're cleaning up and telling everybody goodbye, a bunch of old ladies are lingering because they think that they're hot. But one of these older women is named Barbara Manatez, and she gifts Larry a handmade baby blue sweater with a rubber ducky on it, which is a throwback to an episode of VeggieTales where Larry the Cucumber plays King George and is obsessed with his rubber ducky. Like, the guy never leaves his tub. Whole kingdom in a pie war and he's just marinating. And so Larry, like priest Larry, not Larry in the show now, he starts singing this song. Oh, Barbara Manatez, you are the one for me. And this again is a direct reference to VeggieTales, because there is an iconic song from Silly Songs with Larry where he sings a love song to Barbara Manatee. And you know what? I appreciate the thought that went into this reference. If only the entire book actually had VeggieTale references though, because I feel like after like 20 or so more pages, we do not hear about VeggieTales ever again. But anyways, just as the priests are finishing wrapping up, an unfamiliar old hag, like a mythological hag, appears. And she's dressed in a dark cloak with a crooked nose, a boil, like just like straight up like a witch. And she tells Bob and Larry that she knows them better than they know themselves. And even more ominously says, tonight is the harvest moon. You need a transformation. And it's up to both of you to define the true fruits of your soul. And this in fact reminded me that both a tomato and a cucumber are technically fruits. Despite Bob and Larry being the main characters of a fucking show called VeggieTales, they got seeds in them, which makes them imposters. Just some food for thought. But Bob and Larry somehow just do not think very much about this interaction. They assume this is just some other old lady churchgoer that is also obsessed with them because they're hot. They move on like extremely quick. I mean, they start flirting. Quote, "This duck sweater is rather sexy. Come on, this doesn't do it for you?" I spin slowly. Larry says this duck sweater is rather sexy. Come on, this doesn't do it for you?" I spin slowly. Bob runs up to me and pushes me. "Yeah, you wish." I chuckle, biting my tongue because
Fuck yeah, I absolutely wish.
now, later this same night, Bob is restless and heads down to the kitchen to drink some wine because he is just really going through it, struggling with his very strong attraction to Emily and his jealousy over Larry talking to her so much. He's in a bisexual priest challenger's conundrum. Can you blame him? So he, of course, starts drinking sadly and hornily. And in his drunkenness, he heads out to the tomato and cucumber crops to admire the moonlight. And he is suddenly startled by Larry, who pops out of nowhere and joins him. So Bob is just thinking out loud. He's like, "God, why is this happening to me?" And then a deep voice responds, "You have to be disobedient." You know, you guys can't see this that well, but my cat is, oh my God. "I can't hang out with you right now." "What part of that don't you understand?" Feel bad for him. "You have to be disobedient," a deep voice responds. "What?" I pop up into a seated position, looking around the field. "Yes, very disobedient. To amend your sins, you must obey every command of your brother, Larry." "Oh, fuck off," I yell, noticing his voice and a rustle from a cornstalk a few feet away. Larry emerges from the brush, bent over in laughter. "Leave me alone," I yell, falling back to the earth and swinging my arm over my eyes to hide my misery. "Oh, come on," Larry says between his laughter, stumbling over to me. "Don't be mad at me. Why are you banging around in the kitchen if you don't want me to follow you out here?" I wasn't banging around. The door did shut harder than I anticipated, but I wonder if Lawrence struggles to sleep as much as I am. "You certainly woke me up." He plops down on the ground next to me, reaching over me for the bottle of wine. He's too close already, and the warmth of his body seeps through my pores. I scoot over, still annoyed with him, but hand the wine to him anyways. "What are you doing here?" he asks. "Clearly, I came alone to talk to God." "Ah, but aren't you glad I answered instead?" he asked before chugging the red wine. A drop falls down his chin, barely illuminated by the light of the orange moon. The two of them proceed to get drunk as fuck, and then something very important happens. Larry takes a cucumber off of the vine, and he takes a bite. Then next, Bob does something utterly despicable. Quote, "My fingers graze a tomato, ripe and firm. I bring it to my mouth and take a bite," mimicking Larry. Who the fuck takes a bite out of a raw ass tomato, let alone one that just came out of the dirt? Tomato juice drips down my chin, and Larry reaches over to wipe it, laughing. Again with the fluids coming out of people's mouths. Like, if you took a shot every time fluid was dripping out of people's mouths in these books, you would actually fucking die. Tomato juice isn't sexy, and you can't convince me of it. Anyways, Larry actually ends up saying something that I found to be very endearing and sweet. He says, "You're definitely God's favorite. He made me just to serve you." Like, on some real shit? That is really romantic. That was kind of a bar, GM Fairy. But as the two of them begin to fall into an uncontrollable slumber right there in the vegetable garden, Bob actually reciprocates his feelings by saying, "If only you could truly serve me the way I choose." Oh my God. Truly, truly, truly. I wish that we could kidnap some of these lines and put them in another book, just like a straight up queer romance. But listen, this slumber is what finally causes this book to take a nosedive into complete absurdity. And by that, I mean, we are gonna have to start taking the title of this book literally. Because in the next chapter, we start reading from the perspective of Larry, and he's just woken up, the sun is beating down on him, he's still in the vegetable garden, but something is off. Quote, everything looks funny, almost like I'm in a carnival funhouse surrounded by mirrors, making me appear small. I'm not ready to deal with the day, to ponder the words Bob shared with me last night, to think about how close we slept next to each other, our bodies almost touching in warm moonlight. The ground shakes around me. My mind jumps to the conclusion of an earthquake. I don't think we have those here. I've never experienced them, but I could have been lucky. I try to push up, but I'm stuck. My body frozen. What kind of wine was that? I didn't think I was drunk last night, but I'm completely incapacitated. I start to panic, trying with all my might to move as the ground shakes more violently. I tell myself to breathe, but it's no use. Something moves above me, stealing all the oxygen from my lungs. It's a hand, a giant hand, reaching down for me. It's not until the fingertips grip my skin that I realize it. The giant isn't grabbing my skin at all. No, I don't have normal flesh anymore. My body is hard and firm. Oh my God, am I dead? Is my body already experiencing rigor mortis and I'm trapped in a lifeless corpse? Maybe this giant is a god, taking me to the afterlife. But then she brings me to her face and I make her out. It's a god, all right. It's Emily. And this is when Larry has the epiphany. Quote, she's not holding a tiny version of me. She's holding a cucumber. A fucking cucumber. I'm a cucumber. It's almost too ridiculous to be a dream, but it has to be because what the fuck? She shifts her attention to her other hand, and I glance over to see the tomato she's holding. As I look at the ground, firm, a vegetable, something in me pings. That's not a tomato at all. That's Bob. I could recognize him in any form. It doesn't look like Bob. It looks like a goddamn tomato. But as much as I can tell I'm a cucumber, I can tell that tomato is Bob. Emily shivers as if a sudden chill washed through her. She shakes her head. What's wrong with me? She whispers before placing Bob and me into a woven basket on the ground. We're dropped on top of potatoes, peppers, and a head of lettuce. I can tell right away the produce is just that. Not other transformed priests. I don't know why I know that, but I do. I stare up above, watching as the blue sky changes to the familiar ceiling of our kitchen. Emily places the basket on the countertop. I listen as she steps over the cabinet and rummages through pots and pans. The sounds, the smells, and everything around me seems so real. Whenever I'm in a dream, I can't tell, but if I suspected I was in one, I'd start to notice the errors, the blurry edges. Everything around me is concrete. Unless it's the most immersive lucid dream I've ever experienced, this isn't a dream. This is real. I can't talk and I can't move. I want to reach out to Bob to see if he's conscious like me, but I can't do anything. Emily's angelic face appears above me, a large, sharp knife in her hand. Oh my God. I was so concerned about living life as a sentient cucumber that I forgot the worst part of all. I'm food. Emily's about to have her plump lips around me, except instead of my as I've dreamed about, it will be my entire body snapped under her molars. Maybe Bob was right. Maybe God is punishing us. Who knew he was such a sinister fuck? To my relief, Emily places the knife down next to the basket before grabbing Bob and me in each of her hands. She brings us to her face, examining us closely. Her fingers gently dance around my body. I should be freaking out, but her touch sends a shiver through my cucumber frame. Not actually, I can't move, but internally, I feel hot and bothered. Her lips part, her breath heavies, and her eyelids droop. She brings me to her lips. Fear doesn't take hold of me like it did when she held the knife. I don't even care if she takes a bite out of me. God, do I want to be in her mouth, to feel her her lips around my green skin. Maybe God isn't sinister. Maybe he's giving me exactly what I want, except as a cucumber. Weird, but God is known for doing some weird shit. He did make a donkey talk to teach some poor chap a lesson. Oh my God, Emily whispers, her lips almost touching me. Yes, I think to myself, thank you, God. It's been years since I've had a woman's mouth on me, and I'll take it, even as a cucumber. I'm not a priest anymore. I'm not even a man. She can use me however she sees fit. I actually wrote a note on this page that says, cucumbering equals Mormon soaking. Anyways, my journey to her lips stops, and Emily opens her eyes wide. What the fuck is wrong with me? She exclaims, her voice dripping in shame. She places us back down on the counter, gathering the rest of the produce and bringing it to the cutting board by the sink. Without Emily so close to me, I can think properly. I thank the Lord that I'm still alive. Well, sort of. Whatever the fuck this kind of life is, my mind wanders as I watch Emily cut the unlucky vegetables. Is she always so attracted to cucumbers? Maybe I'm not dead or in my own dream at all. Maybe Emily has a cucumber kink and I'm somehow in her dream. Or maybe Emily feels something about us because she can sense we're not vegetables. Maybe if I try hard enough, I can reach out to her. I spend the next few moments straining to do anything. It hurts my brain, but after 10 minutes, I swear I'm able to move myself a fraction of an inch. It could be in my head, but I need any sort of hope right now. Maybe if I try hard enough, I can move more. Emily finishes cutting the produce. She drops the knife and extends her arms, holding herself up on the counter in deep thought. She takes a sharp breath before turning to Bob and me on the counter. Shit, did I do something? Did I signal her attention? She walks over to us, slowly and with a nervous expression. She takes a big gulp of air before picking us up, examining us in each of her hands. It's that weird dream I had, she whispers to us. And guys, genuinely at this point, I thought that they were gonna find some way to communicate with Emily and then something sexual would happen. But no. Emily is just that horny and literally goes straight to her bedroom and starts banging herself with a fucking cucumber and going to town with a tomato. She's like just banging them purely off of vibes. So here's how it goes down from Emily's perspective. I walk over to my bed, placing the tomato and cucumber on my bedside table. I'm not sure why these two vegetables make the blood in my veins thicken, but I couldn't bring myself to cut them up for tonight's salad. Something in me screamed to take them away from the kitchen. There were plenty of vegetables in the garden that I barely even noticed, but when I touched these two, it was like electricity shot through my nervous system. It's probably their texture. The cucumber is so hard and long with a slight curve. The tomato feels firm in my hand, its skin shiny and smooth. Couple these facts with my weird cucumber dick dream from the other night, and I think I've discovered my oddly specific perversion. I rush back to my bedroom door, double checking it's locked before I shimmy out of my blue jeans, kicking them out of my way. Father Larry comes to mind. I don't recall my dream, but our conversation from the other night. He was so close to me, the milk dripping down his chin and his hair a mess from restless sleep. God, all I wanted for him was to pull my stool closer to his and wrap me in his arms. Of course, neither of these fantasies will ever happen, but here in my room, alone with my thoughts, anything is possible. Oh, Father, I moan. And then this is the real fucked up shit, okay? This is crazy. When she's finished with them, Bob and Larry both come as vegetables. They fucking explode and their vegetable seeds get everywhere. Here it is from Larry's perspective, okay? It all becomes too much. There's a pop and wetness around me. I burst. A small hole opens at the bottom of me, and my literal seed drips onto Emily's skin. Okay. Oh my god. And then freaking Bob does the same thing, which is fucking disgusting. Like, it's gotta smell crazy in this room. Because listen, I could understand a cucumber. Like, I can see where she's coming from with that at the very least, you know, shape and stuff. That makes sense. It doesn't smell weird. It's smooth, okay? Tomato, though. Rubbing a tomato on your body feels like it would be a pain in the ass. And also it has that little like stem thing at the bottom and the green thing at the top. Like, that doesn't sound pleasant. But then we cut to Emily waking up the next morning saying to herself that she had an amazing time last night, but that she has cucumber and tomato gunk in her crotch. Quote, I somehow made them burst and had to clean cucumber and tomato gunk from my crotch. Okay, maybe I actually liked cleaning that up and even tasted a little bit of it, as weird as that sounds. But I will need to head to the pharmacy at some point because I most definitely contracted a yeast infection. Girl, what do you mean you even liked it a little? What do you mean? But okay, just ignoring that, this is where things get really entangled between the three of them. Because when she wakes up, she notices Father Larry and Father Bob curled up at the bottom of her bed, like back in their human forms. Father Bob and Father Larry rise to their knees on the floor, clutching their heads and looking around as if they are both as confused as I am. What's going on? Father Bob says, looking down at his body. He wears a white t-shirt and navy sleep pants. I track his gaze, noticing the wet spot at his crotch. Oh my god, this is mortifying. Is this God's punishment for fucking a cucumber? Surely he wouldn't bring the priests into this. They didn't do anything wrong. And can I just say that them all of a sudden waking up and having on a white t-shirt and track pants like makes no fucking sense? Would it not make more sense for them to just be there naked and have that like classic silly interaction with like, oh my god, I'm naked, what the hell? Instead, what is this like randomized outfit? Unless this was like how they were born, like they were born in a white t-shirt and track pants. Man, did I have the most fucked up dream, Father Larry finally says, running his fingers through his mop of golden hair, looking a little more amused than Father Bob, or I imagine I look right now. What are you two doing here? I croak, my voice loud and strained. Father Bob looks at Father Laurent, befuddlement strewn across his face, and I can't help but notice the fine whispers of stubble poking out on his jaw, further accentuating his image of being ill-prepared. I have no idea. He shakes his head, stands on his feet, and covers his crotch with his giant hands. I'm so sorry, Emily. I don't know how this happened, but we'll leave. His eyes slip momentarily to my chest, still covered by my blanket, before diverting to the floor. A small moment catches my attention from the other side of his hands. His cheeks blush. Oh my god, did I just give a priest a boner? Father Larry falls to his back laughing. Dude, what was in that wine? I had a dream that I was a fucking cucumber. Father Robert catches my eyes, his expression wide. And Bob, you were a tomato. I'll keep the rest of it to myself, but holy shit, was it wild. Bob turns to Larry, his posture rigid. What will you keep to yourself? Larry remains on the floor, his hands over his knees, and a smirk still on his lips. Believe me, you don't want to know. Robert steps closer to him, seeming to grow taller. His voice is gruff and powerful. What happened in your dream? Larry sobers, sitting up and eyeing Bob. Why? Because I had a dream I was a tomato and you were a cucumber. There's no way. Are they playing some sort of cruel joke on me? Is this penance for masturbating in their home? I adjust myself, feeling uncomfortable, and the bed squeaks. The two priests whip their attention to me as if suddenly remembering I'm there. Maybe we should discuss this privately, Bob says, his eyes still on me as he extends a hand to Larry on the floor, helping him to his feet. I clear my throat out. I brought a cucumber and a tomato into my room earlier today. Why did I admit that? There's no way what I'm thinking is true. It was just a cucumber and a tomato, nothing more. Even if there seemed to be some supernatural attraction pulling me toward the produce, I was just super horny. That can be the only possible explanation. Maybe they were peeping in on me, saw what happened, and are teaching me a lesson. But maybe I don't care. Maybe I want to see just how these two will punish me. Okay, so they're trying to analyze what happened, right? And Emily fully starts believing, like, yeah, maybe this did happen. And if it did, then that means I, like, essayed them. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm fully convinced at this point, at least for now. They both snap their attention to me, their faces inches away from mine. Why? Larry asks, as if my apology is the most confusing part of all of this. If all this is true, what I did to you two was horrible. Bob shrugs, turning to Larry. Well, I don't know if I would say that. I enjoyed myself. Me fucking too, Larry says with a smile, eyes locked on Bob's. But you're both priests. Aren't you not supposed to have sex with women? Larry replies, but we weren't priests when we were fucking you. I was a cucumber. Bob was a tomato. Maybe this is from God. Maybe God wanted this to happen. Bob says, well, we're not produce now. We need to leave. I'm sorry, Emily. This is completely inappropriate. Larry, let's go. He turns before I can say more. I don't know what to think, but I do know just moments before, Father Bob's lips were inches away from my own, his hand just a reach away from my pussy. Wait, what's going on? I turn to Larry, his expression as confused as I feel. He shrugs, but stands, following after Bob. Bob steps towards me, but remains at the door. The veins in his neck bulge. Ew. He grabs Larry's wrist. He points a finger at me. I don't know if this is a test, blessing, or curse, but I do know that I'm not a tomato right now, and he's not a cucumber. I'm about 2 seconds away from losing control and taking advantage of you. We need to separate and collect ourselves, he says to Larry. We need to pray and ask God for guidance. Bob flings open the door and throws himself out, pulling Larry behind him. Before Larry disappears, he looks at me, rolling his eyes as if to apologize for his friend's irrational behavior. I don't think that any Catholic priest is allowed to get married and they have to be celibate. So this is actually the perfect solution. Literally, just become a cucumber or tomato and then you can fuck as much as you'd like. I mean, it makes sense. A cucumber doesn't have a soul. Its soul can't get sucked down to hell or flown up to heaven. I don't know how any of it works. But anyways, despite how we've just established that workaround, in the next chapter, Larry and Bob start f***ing off together in the confessional booth. So this is from Bob's perspective, okay? Larry goes in the booth. He says, Father, I must confess a sin. I roll my head to the side. Oh, cut it out. I jerk off as much as possible, he says quickly. Images run through my head. The look on his shadowed profile from across the dorm. His hands underneath the blanket. My breath heavies in my chest. I've jerked off too, I concede. His breath grows louder. Really? I thought you stopped when we got our own rooms. There it is, the thing we never talked about. Why did you think that? I grip my thigh, my slacks tenting. I don't hear you. I palm my I'm drunk on the tension now, my brain twisting to images, my mouth not connecting to the rest of me. Do you try to hear me? A soft whimper seeps through the holes between us. Every night I listen for your moans. I still remember the way you sound. His belt buckle jingles, his clothes rustle. I'm much quieter now. I reach down my pants, pulling myself out slowly. He tusks. What a shame. You have such a pretty moan. Okay, honestly, I don't think I can read some of this because I'm pretty sure I will straight up get demonetized, but just know they was drinking it. And when they finish, from Bob's perspective, he's panicking. Quote, I don't say a word as I stumble out of the booth, retracting back to my room as fast as I can. So as you can see, Bob is very avoidant, and he's like, I don't do none of that gay shit, but secretly is joiking it. And my other thoughts when it comes to this is like, is all this stuff canceled out because they were in the confessional booth confessing? Literally, all you have to do is confess. So they might have j***ed it, but if they confess to it, can they relieve each other of the sins in the way that a normal priest could? It's like one of those questions of like, who does the guy go to that cuts hair? Who does the mailman's mail get delivered by? Like, it's just a little bit of a mystery. So then in the next chapter, Emily is serving the priest dinner, and she's like, we need to talk. Like, we need to try to continue to figure out what the hell is going on. And this is when Larry and Bob mention, you know, that creepy old lady that came in the other day and was telling them they are gonna find the true fruits of their soul. And in response, Emily says, why are you just now mentioning this? She obviously knew something like this would happen. Larry waves his hand in dismissal. She was off her meds. I stare at him, dumbfounded. Bob clears his throat. She's right. It wasn't a coincidence. We turned into fucking vegetables right after that creepy old woman told us that. So what? We've got a witch on the loose? We're cursed? Aren't priests supposed to be immune to that, Larry says? Unless she's an angel, says Bob. And Bob and Larry start going back and forth about this quite a bit, and they start arguing. And in the middle of that, there is a loud popping sound, and they disappear. And Emily is like, oh my God, where did they go? And then she looks down and she sees that there's a cucumber and a tomato sitting on their seats. And so she picks them up and takes them to her room, but she doesn't put them in her bed. She lays them down on the floor, much to Larry's disapproval. And just like last time, they both wake up in their human bodies, in their white t-shirts and track pants. And besides being sad that he wasn't used in his cucumber form again, he's thinking about how much he loves Bob. Plus, the whole experience they had jerking off together yesterday. Quote, Bob lies on the other side of her bed. He looks like he has a stick up his ass, even in his sleep. His brow furrows, and his hands ball into fists. I still love the asshole, even if he ruins all my fun. Who am I kidding? I love him even more for his stubbornness. It just makes me want to break him. I shiver at the thought of our moments together in the confessional booth yesterday. I've never felt closer to God. Finally, after all these years, I seeped into his hard exterior. I must thank Emily and the magical vegetable spell. It's awakening something in all of us. Again, though, in the middle of this conversation, the two of them suddenly pop and become vegetables again. But this time, shit goes down. And something crazy happens. Larry starts freaking vibrating. So yeah, you could guess where that leads. And Larry's thinking to himself, I'm willing to die with Robert here because I know I'll never ever live a life with him or with anyone. I already feel deeply for Emily, a dangerous thing since I'm not allowed to attach to anyone. I would rather be a cucumber than a human because I am more myself than ever before. All my dreams are coming true, but maybe my dreams deserve more than this cucumber form. Damn! He is so down bad that the man would rather live as a goddamn vegetable. But after they all bang, when Larry wakes up, he immediately forgets that he's supposed to do a sermon this morning. So he rushes back to the church, but he is all over the place. He's continuously fucking up. And at the end of it, he says, sorry for the mess ups. It's like that one time I got my lips stuck to a gate. He chuckles awkwardly, shaking his head. May the peace of the Lord always be with you. And Bob thinks to himself, what the fuck? Lips stuck to a gate? Why is he talking about his lips? And this is once again a reference to a Silly Songs with Larry. It's a song called I Love My Lips, where Larry is talking to his therapist, Archibald. He's lying on one of those classic therapist couches and explaining to him just how much he loves his lips, and that he's afraid his lips will leave him if he begins talking about basically the traumatic things in his life. And he just keeps going on about how much he loves his lips. And then the reference to the gate is because he tells his therapist that in just 10 days after turning 8 years old, he had got his lips stuck in a gate. And all his friends laughed at him. And speaking of Archibald, he's actually in the book too. And he's a bishop who oversees all the regional churches and ensures the priests and the parishes are doing all of their jobs. Now, what would you do if you went to heaven, but God said Archibald is an asparagus? Food for thought right there. But this bishop, Archibald, was conveniently sitting in the audience that entire time that Larry was messing up. And this guy's pissed. He says, "May I have a private word with you both in your office?" And then Larry turns to Bob and says, "Maybe he'll turn into an asparagus before he can fire us." This causes Bob to groan and think to himself, he's ridiculous, but maybe all priests do turn into produce in our parish now. If that's the case, I don't want Emily to find him. I don't want her fucking any other vegetables besides us. It's already complicated enough. In the next chapter, we find out that Bob and Larry are not in any serious trouble, but he's told them to take a break, which they interpret as a serious warning, and this pisses Bob the fuck off because he takes his job very seriously, unlike Larry. So he keeps thinking to himself, damn, maybe fucking as vegetables is a huge mistake. It's too distracting. Larry, of course, though, with his horny ass, says he wants to continue. How could you be so selfish? This is bigger than all of us. This is God. You've taken a vow. I've obviously made a mistake. It wasn't the right choice to succumb to our urges as vegetables. That old woman must have been one of Satan's minions instead of an angel. He steps back. We're done. No more fucking around as vegetables. My stomach hollows. I was so determined moments before, certain that living at the edge of my desires wouldn't be enough. But now that Robert rips everything away from me in an instant, I'm back to my desperate self. Would I be happier without Robert and now Emily? Wait, no, you can't take this away from us. You said it was God. I was wrong. God obviously sent Bishop Archibald as a warning that we were on the wrong path. Robert, please. My voice shakes and I grab his wrist. He looks down at where our skin meets. His expression softens a minuscule. I've waited. I've been good. I've done everything you asked. I joined seminary because I was looking for something more, something to follow. I think you both know it wasn't God for me. It was something else. I know you are devoted. This is it for you. I've always respected that. In fact, I admired you for it, but we finally have something to fulfill our needs. Please don't take that away from me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked for more. He scoffs, but gets closer. My back hits the wall. Do you think you're the only tortured soul to exist? You think I didn't have urges that run through my thoughts? You haven't been good. You haven't been respectful. Every breath you take tempts me. Every movement you make brings me closer to the edge of my breaking point. I've always barely held on by a thread, and then this miracle or curse, whatever it is, happened, and I thought maybe it was a gift from God for resisting you all these years, but it's obviously too much for us. I don't want to be without you, Larry. He slams a fist against the wall at the side of my head. Fuck, this could be the end of us if we let it. My heart hammers in my chest. His breath tickles my lips. Tears rest in the corner of my eyes. I hear his words. I feel his pain, but he doesn't realize what he's saying. Everything I felt over the years rests on his lips. He's too wound up in God that he doesn't realize what he's admitting. A force comes over me. Maybe it's God, maybe it's something bigger, but I can't resist. I lean in, crashing my lips against him. Claps, 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 claps. We do not want Emily here. We do not want her here. It's Larry and Bob all the way. It's always been Larry and Bob. Anyways, I'm an idiot. This isn't what he wants, but I can't help myself. I expect him to pull away and punch me in the jaw, but he surprises me. His lips part and he melts into me. My... You know what? Okay, hardens, and I push into him gently. I reach for him to run my fingers through his hair, but I'm petrified that if I make any sudden movements, I'll scare him off. And then basically, after this, he snaps out of it, and he literally, quite literally, runs away. So now I genuinely feel bad for Larry, and it's a real shame that for the rest of the book, I feel that Larry and Bob's relationship is really done a disservice, okay? They have all this history together. Keep in mind, this tension has been building up for years and years and years. Bob's been fighting this urge. The dynamic is interesting. Meanwhile, Emily is just kind of there. But anyways, the next day after this dramatic, sexy encounter, Emily is outside exploring the garden when she hears Larry singing this. Everybody wants a water buffalo. Yours is mine, but mine is kind of fellow. Everybody wants a water buffalo. Yours is mean, but mine is a kind fellow. Oh, where could you find one? I don't know, but everybody wants a water buffalo. I actually don't really know the harmony that this is supposed to go in, but I do know that this is a song from VeggieTales called Water Buffalo. But I do know that this is a song from VeggieTales called the Water Buffalo song. But this makes Emily ask him, you know, why are you singing about water buffaloes? And he says, sometimes I write kids songs. I figured one day I could have a special during church called Silly Songs with Lauren. Okay, she can't say Larry because that would totally, I don't even know what VeggieTales creators would do. Would they bust down GM Fairy's door if she actually said Silly Songs with Larry? I don't know. Then Emily and Larry get into a conversation about the existence of God and whether or not Larry is truly happy being a priest, which she notices it seems like he isn't. Emily says, but you've dedicated your whole life to this? Why would you do that if you're unsure? He turns, mimicking my posture. His expression grows serious, the light in his eyes fading. I think you know why. I do. I'd be blind not to notice it. He's in love with Bob. I can't blame him. It's hard not to be pulled in by his good looks and domineering presence. But while Bob is tragically beautiful, Larry is on the other spectrum. He's like a Greek god filled with light that shines through his chiseled features. He's so easy to be around, sucking you in as if every word is just a secret for you, like you're the only person in the universe. How could Bob not be in love with Larry? Maybe he doesn't see it yet. They're priests after all. It's much more complicated than just admitting what your heart wants. And then I am here, a random girl rubbing their vegetable bodies all over me like a horny teenager. Their love story seems poetic and tragic, like Achilles and Patroclus. But adding me to the mix makes it seem like some corny smut novel. Maybe that's what attracted me to them originally, this weird connection between the two. I can't help but want to be around them. So finally, at least we get that very self-aware line. Adding her into the mix turns it into a corny smut novel. Listen. And this is just maybe me reaching, okay? This is maybe, maybe it's not fair, but I kind of feel like GM Fairy was scared to make this a strictly gay romance / smut rather than having a woman in the mix, because I don't know like the statistics of gender who are reading these books, but it's probably a lot of women, and so maybe she thought like, oh, if women can't relate to this or whatever, then maybe they're not gonna read it. But just coming from me, okay? Girls love gay men. We love gay people, okay? We want more Larry and Bob. After this conversation, the two of them have sex, and it's important to note that Larry is wearing that sweater from earlier, the one with the rubber duck on it, and while they're in the middle of doing it, she goes, "Your sweater is so soft," and he says, My sweater doesn't even hold a candle to the softness of your skin. And oh my gosh, my notes on this page are so funny because one of the things that Larry says during this sesh is pounding you as produce doesn't compare to how I can fuck you. I'm in control this time. And I wrote in all capital letters, he said the thing. And then at the very bottom of the page, I've written all caps, huge letters, boring. Okay? Look, listen. I love bisexuals, okay? I am a bisexual. I'd love to see it. However, I can't even like focus on these scenes between him and Emily. I'm just like, please just move on to Bob. Sorry, I feel like my complaints are just getting redundant, but it's like, get Emily the fuck out of here. Anyways, though, we are going to skip forward. We're gonna skip quite a few chapters because this does get a bit redundant after a little while. It's just kind of like, will they, won't they? Bob is like, I'm gonna run away. Like, okay, like valid, but you know, it just, you know, it's not giving everything I wanted it to give. And so we will go to where things actually get to a head. And that is when the three of them are eating together and Larry decides to try and make Bob jealous by pursuing Emily in front of him. Bob and Larry begin fighting about all of this tumultuousness, their complicated relationship with each other, and Larry threatens to leave the church. He says, I don't have to be a priest, you know. I can leave the church. I can be with Emily without you. And Bob says, fine, leave then. That's when Larry just starts laying it on thick on Emily, just starts going nuts. He starts kissing her and he says to Bob, tell me you'd be okay with this, sitting back, watching as I make her mine. He's silent for a moment, but then answers, I'd be fine. His voice low and gruff and coated with his lie. So you don't mind if I take her right here, if I fuck her right here on this table in front of you? Be my guest. The words barely leave his lips, soaking at the edge of his lips. Okay, wait, what kind of sentence is that, by the way? Let me just read that to you again. The words barely leave his lips, soaking at the edge of his lips. What? I eated the soap. No, I didn't, but I did. But then this turns into a cuck situation. Bob is just sitting there watching this all go down, joiking his peanuts. But then suddenly, just as things are getting to a climax, somebody opens the door and walks in. And who is it? Gail, you know, the little old lady from earlier, the one who hired Emily, and she screams, whoa! And it kind of makes sense because there's one priest that's joiking its peanuts, the other priest is joiking it. So in the next chapter, we learn that after they got caught doing this, Bob and Larry both resign from their positions. And this really devastates Bob, you know, because he actually cares about all this. And he's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I guess I have to become a monk. I'm gonna leave and be a monk. And this is Larry's response to that. He says, oh, for fuck's sake, Robert, quit with the dramatics. You don't need to become a monk. Bob says, it's the only choice. Only choice? I raise my voice, stepping toward him. Bob, of course you have another choice. I reach for his hand. You could leave all of this behind. You could be with me and... No, he snaps, backing away from me. I can't. Tears fall down his cheeks. I've never seen him cry before, and the sight makes my heart stop in my chest. Before I came to the seminary, I was broken, so broken that I hurt everyone around me. I'd never known love and would squash any morsel that came my way, using people just for pleasure. I care about you, Larry, more than anyone I've ever cared about before, but I can't hurt you. I can't curse you to my face. I push into him, cupping his jaw. I'm not weak, Bob. Don't worry about me. I can take care of whatever you throw at me. He jerks out of my grasp. You don't understand. It's not just you. It's her, too. What do you mean? Like the way I've always wanted you. Like she sees me for who I truly am and welcomes me anyway. I can't have you both. And even if I have one of you, I'll hurt the other. It's a slippery slope to my ruin and everybody around me. It's as if the devotion I've had for God is misplaced. I can hurt God, but humans are weak, and I can't bring myself to damn you or her with my wicked mind. A grin cracks my expression, and I turn away from his eyes. You're so in your head that you never stop to think about the people around you. I know, it's just... No, stop. Do you honestly think either of us are the jealous type? Do you not understand what's going on here? It's the same for me. All this time, I've been devoted to you, guised under my love for God. You were the only one that made me feel whole. But then Emily came, and she saw me for what I am. She had me in any form, and I wanted her too. The feelings I fear would live and die with you multiplied, and I could see my soul in her eyes. I want the same thing you want. I want both of you completely. There's nothing wrong with you. I run my hands up his chest, feeling the breath rattle in his lungs. No, you say that, but it can't work. It's not right. So yeah, that is called polyamory love. That is what he is proposing right now. Oh, shut up. I press forward, capturing his lips with mine. I'm always making the first move, but this is what he needs me for, to stop the ramblings in his head and force him to melt. It's immediate this time. He kisses me back hungrily, his hands tangling in my shirt. Okay, so after this, they do a little, oral. But then, unfortunately, Bob panics again and starts pulling away. And Larry says, "No, Bob, stop. We're done hiding." And Bob starts walking away. He straightens himself and walks past me. "Bob, I love you," I yell, and he stops at the door. "Don't do this to me. I love you. I love you no matter what form you take. Man, priest, tomato. Even in death, my heart will beat for you, and there's nothing you can do about it." He clenches his jaw, tears forming in his eyes, but he won't look at me. "You'll move past this. It's for the best." In the next chapter, we find out what happened to Emily. So basically, she didn't get fired because the bishop thought that the two priests should be responsible for this and were hypothetically taking advantage of her. So her job is chilling, okay? So she's out in the garden. She's just picking vegetables thinking damn, I really got these guys fired. Then, random as hell, the old woman, the witch woman from earlier, appears to her. Quote, "An old woman squats before me. She has dark hair streaked with gray. A stained smile graces her face, and her smoky eyes pin me in place." Whoa, okay, that rhymed. "A black cloak drapes her small frame. I could overtake her if she meant me any harm, but it doesn't make her presence any less terrifying. Do not be afraid, my child," she says sweetly. What the fuck are you doing here? I yell, because she appeared out of nowhere, inches from my face. I don't care if she's telling me not to be afraid. Any sane person would be. I move backward on my hands and feet until my head meets a tree trunk. "I didn't mean to frighten you. I was brought in on the wind." I catch my bearings enough to get to my feet. "Yeah, whatever, lady. I don't know who you are, but I'm getting the fuck out of here." So immediately here for me, as a reader, it's a little bit confusing for the old witch lady to suddenly have this nice approach when earlier she was talking spookily, like a ghoul. I guess we just lost her ghoulish demeanor somewhere along the way. I don't want to leave my back to her, but I've seen way too many horror movies to know how this ends. I'm not staying and playing her game. I turn away and walk back to the parish. "I think I can help you with your priests. Or should I say your little produce pals?" I stop in my tracks. As much as every cell in my being urges me to flee and escape my imminent death, I have to hear this one out. This must be that old woman that said that creepy shit to Bob and Larry the other day before when they turned into vegetables. She must be the key to all of this. I turn back to her and she hobbles up to her knees. "Did you do this to them?" I step closer, crossing my arms over my chest. Her body shakes slightly as she walks closer to me, as if she is mere seconds away from tumbling to the ground. I should feel sorry for her and rush to her side to steady her, but I'm no fool. She's powerful, and through all of our lives into a tizzy. I'm not falling for her helpless act. I'm inches away from the large boil on her nose. She parts her lips to speak. I am only a mere messenger of the cosmos. Nature sometimes plays games with us mortals and asks me to relay their message. The sparkling in her eyes indicates she's enjoying this. Okay. So what's the message then? She reaches up and places her wrinkled hand on my shoulder. Oh, dear child, isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious why two priests are turning into produce and giving off sexual aura? No, not exactly. She laughs loud and scratchy. Thank goodness I'm here. What would you three do without me? She then sighs and shakes her head. My dear child, I already told them the answer. All that is hidden will be brought to light. Darman ass quote. They need a transformation. It's up to them to define the true fruits of their souls. Okay, so they turned into vegetables so I could do with them what they've always dreamed of? Why do they only sometimes turn into vegetables? And how do we get it to stop? Well, you three are destined for each other, cut from the same cloth. The universe wants you three together, and this was how they chose to bring you to each other. They turn into vegetables whenever the three of you are together, and at least one of you admits your desires to yourselves while the other denies their true feelings. Okay, so time out. I think right now is a good time to mention that this witch doesn't have anything to do with VeggieTales, which I think is really disappointing because why would the main antagonist of the book have absolutely nothing to do with the OG source material? Like, I don't know, it's just missing a good opportunity to do something really dumb. Even simply giving the witch a name that's like, I don't know, Rumor W stands for rumor weed. Okay, there's a nice little touch of detail. So you might have already guessed, the TLDR on why this keeps happening is because Bob is in denial of his emotions. Everybody else is like pretty much on board. For as long as he keeps running away, he's gonna keep becoming a damn tomato. Quote, all three of you must admit your love for each other. Then you can live in your true forms. And with that, the witch disappears. So in the next chapter, the three of them all bump into each other in the hallway as Bob is trying to leave with all of his stuff packed. And since Bob is being avoidant, this causes both of them to turn back into vegetables. And she takes them into her bedroom, places them on her bed, and is like, listen, I love both of you. Quote, I know it's crazy and it doesn't make sense. And who do I think I am that I can be in love with two men at the same time? But it's true. It's weird and complicated and it doesn't make sense, but it's real. And her saying this basically like unlocks the love in Bob's heart. And they both turn back into humans and immediately start having a threesome. Basically saying the whole time, I love you, Larry. I love you, Bob. I love you, Emily. Needless to say, they are officially a throuple. And with that, we are in the last chapter where we find out that all three of them left the parish together and bought a farm. Yeah, random as fuck. And hey, it's not even a regular farm. It is exclusively a tomato and cucumber farm. Now, how two priests who didn't make any money and one woman who also didn't make any money were able to buy this farm and start planting a bunch of cucumbers and tomatoes, it really is beyond me, but I guess that's just the power of a throuple. And then the book ends with this beautiful line right here. Our love story is a weird fucking tale, but it's my favorite. The tale of veggies who found love. And I'm gonna have to end it off here. That was a wild ride. I'm sorry to everybody who's still waiting on Shane Dawson part 3. Again, if you missed the last video, I did try to explain that I moved across country and so we just had to work on some shorter videos. However, you'll be happy to know that the plan for next month is to release 2 1-hour videos about Shane instead of taking the entire month to do one long one. I don't know. Experimenting with that. Hopefully you guys like it. I do have to thank my patrons who are wonderful people. Let's see. We got Base Nerd Tier, Rufem, AJ, Aaliyah, Alexandria, Amanda Roberts, Amelia, Anna Stanton, Boogmutt, Bakaram Starin, Baldur's Babe, BB, Bioket, Bohaba Babe, Boney, Bubbly Fox, KCH, Cecil, Kirsty, Clyde, Dimmy, Dory, Emily O, Georgie, Gollum, Grace Squiggle, Gramps, Hey Hey, Helen Millhartz, Hudson Cruz, Jake Gross, Jeremiah, Julia, Caitlin Payne, Kat K, K Money, Kelly Jorgensen, Key Caballero, Kiwi Me, Lane, Lauren, Layla Bot, Levi Rogers, Lolo Cat, Luchad Dork, Mackenzie Maddox, Milena, Mia Martinez, Miffy, Melina, Nashta Crochets, No Period, No Cantaloupe, Nug, Ocean Vermin, Pops Mats, Rachel Stanley, Sabrina AG, Salem, Skylar Host, Skylar Rose, Stella Enriquez, Sweet Ichigo Art, Tacky, Vanessa, Viner, Wyatillian, Zayla Bobela, Yassi B, and that brings us to cool nerd tier, Annalise, Brooke, Cholo Dune Pawn, Coochie Slayer, Jesus, Joaquin Alatorre, Joshy, Kirby, K-Jax, Lee, Linton Johnson, Maddie Rockowitz, Maribel Luna, Marley, May, Renee Poo, Ricky K, Roy Salgado, Sean McLeish, Serenata Wright, Zubob, Zugi E, and that is everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in just a few weeks.